And now for some fact-checking on Obama's Mardi Gras speech, which is kind of unusual that you would have a speech on what people consider a major holiday. Over 40% of Americans didn't even bother listening because they were out having a good time before Lent. Anyway, on the maglev train from Disneyland, $8 billion set aside for that. There's a lot of mountains in the way. Now, we do have cross-the-country Amtrak. For example, you can go from Chicago to L.A. on Amtrak trains. You can go from Chicago to San Francisco and Seattle on Amtrak trains. The Northeast has the acela, the high-speed train, top speed over 145 miles per hour. The upgrades were in the late 90s, beefing up all the rails from wood to concrete. Yet, due to certain restrictions, the run from Washington, D.C. to Boston, it can't always attain that speed because of debris or construction or congestion. Maglev would be much better used in other higher traffic corridors. Denver's light rail, the big infrastructure push, they're considering shutting down several legs of it due to lack of ridership. The auto train that runs from near D.C. to Florida would be a good place to possibly look at a maglev due to the fact that the ground is relatively level and will be much easier to grade, and we could use older areas of track to beef up for this type of train activity. But with flights from LA to Vegas for $39, why bother with a train? I mean, could you handle a rider for cheaper than that and still make money? It just seems to be a bit confusing. Right now you can go most anywhere in the country for under $100. Infrastructure projects such as rail should be used on that. One of the best places would be Atlanta. The northern part of Atlanta, people haven't voted for the taxes for that, but they really need it due to the traffic congestion. Anyway, Benz invented the first automobile. Now, Henry Ford did design his very first cars to run on E85 ethanol, and maybe that's why they're not asking for a bailout. Ethanol in many areas of the country is a really good fuel, because remember, after you brew the ethanol, you still have a high-grade cattle feed. And several brewing companies like Coors Brewery, they have taken bad batches of beer and converted that into ethanol. So our biofuels are great. That's why I don't know why Florida is expanding the Everglades and getting rid of agriculture production. But that could be a boon to countries like Jamaica and other islands where sugar is a mass-produced crop. It'd be much better to import a biofuel from them than it is from our current sources. But Ken Salazar, the new Department of Interior Secretary, pulling away leases for oil shale will hurt the economy of Colorado. This is not good to pull anybody's lease. We still need expanded fuel and oil research, and we need development. Otherwise, the price is going to go right back to $4. Anyway, here's more on the fact-checking on the Obama speech.
Mass production of automobiles, but certainly not the invention. Historians quibble about it, depending on whether you count a steam or electric-powered vehicle, or you could make a case that a Frenchman or even a Scotsman invented the automobile, but not an American.
Tell me, what other factual errors did you find in this report?
Well, the president, to be dramatic about the energy situation, said, and I'm quoting, "We import more oil today than ever before." You ought to check the record. Actually, oil imports peaked in 2005, and they're substantially lower today. They're certainly higher than they were back in the 80s or 90s, but not higher than they've ever been before. He claimed his mortgage plan would help responsible buyers, but not those who'd borrowed beyond their means. Even the most vigorous supporters of his plan, Chairman Bernanke of the Federal Reserve, FDIC Chief Bear, they all concede that even people who borrowed foolishly will have to get aid too. They just there's no way to sort this out. So the president overstated what his mortgage plan is going to be able to distinguish.
We're talking with Brooks Jackson here, who is the director of factcheck.org. We're talking with Brooks Jackson at factcheck.org about the president's speech last night. He said a few things that were just not accurate, and Jackson says the other side is telling some lies, out-and-out lies about this economic stimulus plan as well.
He repeated his claim, of course, that this stimulus bill will create or save 3.5 million jobs, and there are economic studies that back that up. What he doesn't acknowledge is that these projections are uncertain to a very large degree. We really are in uncharted economic territory here. Macroeconomics is a relatively new discipline. There aren't that many years of data to go on, and economists are quite frank about the fact that they don't really know for certain what the effect is going to be.
And I had read where someone in Newsweek had said, when we talk about creating or saving jobs, that there's debate about what that means to save a job. What does that mean?
Well, it was brought out, I think, by something we'll be critiquing in our story. It's being posted as we speak. The president said there are 57 police officers walking the streets of Minneapolis tonight who would have been laid off but for this stimulus bill. Now, the mayor of Minneapolis, who's a strong and early Obama supporter, said something like that, but we looked at rather closely at what the mayor said, really, and it's clear from his budget speech, which he gave Monday, that there are factors besides the stimulus bill at play here. And by the way, that's a hypothetical figure. Mayors love to say, if we apply these state budget cuts, these state funding cuts to the police department, it would mean 57 layoffs. Well, they never apply these things that way. They always find other places to cut. And in fact, that 57 police figure is hypothetical. And the mayor admitted, quite frankly, that there are other factors. He's going to cut overtime. He's saving money from debt service. The stimulus money is one of 5 factors that he cited specifically, and it was the last of the 5 factors, too.
Let me ask you, for the sake of fairness, because as people should know by now, factcheck.org doesn't give a pass to anybody on either side. You've also documented where Republicans have been making some claims about the stimulus that are simply false.
Well, that's yes, we have. There have been quite a number of claims. I'm sure people are familiar with them. If you Republican claims you hear, you'd think this bill is full of things like money for golf carts, money for levitating trains is one favorite. Just a couple of items on that. There's no money for golf carts here. What they're talking about is $300 million to buy fuel-efficient vehicles for the government, some of which will be like sort of cart-like vehicles, like the ones the Army already uses. They're leasing hundreds of them to use on military bases. Nobody's going to be playing golf in these things. That levitating train should more properly be called a maglev train. There are proposals to run a train from Anaheim, where Disneyland is, out to Las Vegas. It's far from being shovel-ready. There's $8 billion in this bill for high-speed intercity rail transit. Some of that might go for this maglev train, which, by the way, would 300 miles an hour. Japan has one on a test track that's hit 360 miles an hour. We're actually behind Japan in this technology. But there's no guarantee that this $8 billion is going to go to that train. No guarantee that even part of it will go.
Well, Brooks, unless there's anything else, of course, people can read more about any or all of this at factcheck.org. I appreciate it.
Appreciate talking to you, Scott.